Hi, I'm Griego with Griego Mouthpieces, and today I got up at 3:15 in the morning to come to New York City.
That's when I went to sleep.
To see this man, Mr. David Taylor.
Howdy.
So, Dave, we've known each other like 26 years now.
I met you when you first came to the Edwards Corporation. Was when you were 24 years old. Oh, what does that make you, bro?
So,
What does that make me, man?
right? We've known each other for quite a few years.
Yeah, and we didn't get started with the Mouthpieces for 5, 10 years, 15 years after that? 15?
Yeah, I think it was a little more like, yeah, I think more like
How
17.
long were we doing that?
We've been doing it now for about 7, possibly 8, because we had the test and
He was very patient. I'm very particular when it comes. We're all particular when it comes to mouthpieces, but I'm kind of nut about it because I play in so many diversified genres. So it took him time, and we lucked out. I was playing with Bob Mitzer outside of Chicago. There's a big festival, and I went to your place first.
Yep.
And we lucked out somehow, or yeah. We didn't luck out. We culminated.
This is an interesting story or subject.
Go ahead.
Luck versus being good.
You make your own luck, man.
Yeah, I've always been lucky.
I consider my career based on being in the right place at the right time, using every opportunity, and luck seemed to come my way.
Right. So, when did you start playing?
I started off with tenor trombone at Juilliard. Don't even know why they took me, because I couldn't really read. I auditioned on the Haydn Trumpet Concerto, second movement, slow movement. Kind of faked them out. Vacchiano was there, Dean Tinnis was there, David Schumann was there, I think Roger Smith was there. Somehow they let me through. They wouldn't let me in any ensembles the first year, and they wouldn't even let me in music theory. I had to take rudimentary theory with someone.
So, can I ask you, when they didn't let you in these classes, were you...
Right to the street.
Were you freelancing?
Yeah. I was green. I had only been playing the trombone for a year. I started trombone when I was a senior in high school.
Senior in high school, okay. So when did you start playing?
I started playing about 5 years before that on the tuba.
No, but I mean, when did you start playing freelancing?
Oh, so I switched to the bass trombone about 3 years into Juilliard. I was there for 6 years. Got my bachelor's and master's. And somebody put a bass trombone in my hand because they needed me to play an orchestra gig, third trombone. I really didn't even know what a bass trombone was. Within 6 months, bro.
Yeah.
Within 6 months, I was playing like in Leopold Stokowski's American Symphony. That was my first steady gig.
Now, I've seen a lot of tenor players that have switched over to bass, and all of a sudden, and whenever I first moved to Milwaukee, the phone didn't ring, and I was calling people and networking, and then one day the phone rang, and it was like, "You play bass?" I was like, "Yes, I do."
That's what happened.
Yeah.
And I didn't, of course.
Yeah, and I was the same way. I put one together, and off I went.
I borrowed my school's Juilliard's Con 72H, which I love, which is why I like kind of playing on this lighter equipment. I like that little zzz in it, you know. And I borrowed a bass trombone mouthpiece from my teacher, David Schumann, the John Coffey. You know who John Coffey was?
I don't know.
John Coffey was up in Boston, probably 30s, 40s, 50s, crazy mofo. Drunk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? One of the cats.
Yeah.
Right. But he had, when he taught, cats would go up there and they would comment on he had been partying a little bit, which when I was younger, I have to admit to you.
Yeah.
You know,
Everyone does when they're younger, I think,
You know. So I played on his mouthpiece, and basically what it turned out to be was like a Bach 1.5 G bored out. So that's what I played on for about 25 years. And then I started playing solo stuff, and that equipment, I was playing a Holton for a while, that equipment didn't work for me in solo work.
Gotcha.
It was too, the bell is heavier than you would think, you know. So it was the valve section was kind of like, I used to complain to her what pain I was in. Steve Shires and you guys came along, started making me lightweight bells, and that was a thing of the past.
Yeah.
You know, and then I switched to a Stork, but now I've been playing on your pieces.
Well, you had a few. You had a Stork, you had a Tyne mouthpiece, and you had
Tyne. That's right.
You had the Tyne, and you had a third mouthpiece that you kept in the mix, and I can't remember what that was. You had two Storks, one Tyne, because I know you had.
No, I had 2 Tynes.
Oh, it was 2 Tynes. Okay.
They sent me a third one, but I couldn't play it. Once, I might have had 2 storks and 2 times.
But you were kind of crazy about mouthpieces. I
Yes,
remember.
that's right.
I didn't know if I wanted to work with Dave, honestly, about mouthpieces because because when I went into his practice room, there's mouthpieces everywhere. There was, and he would be like, and he'd start playing, and what do you think about this? What do you think about? And you'd switch, and I didn't know if I could make you happy, and so
Well, you did for a long time.
Yeah, I know. People always ask me about things. I'm like, well, I just fail faster. And
Why?
I fail faster.
Fail is the name of the game. Right?
Yeah, so when you fail, you learn and you learn. Each one you learn. I actually had a New Yorker once tell me after a trip, when something didn't work out, he goes, "Oh, you must be really disappointed." And I said, No, because based upon this knowledge now, I can go, I know what didn't work, I can take that same equipment, work on it, and then adjust it acoustically until we discuss. And that's failing.
I agree, but it hurts when you fail. You move on, but for me, I would fail in front of audiences.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I would need to be encouraged. I just did a podcast for the guys from the Trombone Retreat.
Yep. Sebastian. Yep.
And Nick. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about that subject. That you just.
Well, I think if you're going to be a musician, you have to be okay with tripping every now and then.
Yes.
It's
I still trip.
It's part of life, and if you're creating a live art, painting the air with sound, sooner or later something's going to happen.
That's right.
And you have to be present enough to move forward. Right. I think.
The other reason for the mouthpiece thing that you have to remember, man, I was hanging out with heavy-duty orchestral cats, and then guys like John Faddis, Randy Brecker, all those guys. So they all had styles of different things. So I had to find equipment that could go across and match their styles. That was one of the reasons I was a mouthpiece junkie, just for the junkiedom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I had to.
It served a purpose.
It served a purpose, and that's why.
So your music is very. Virtuosic is a word that's always used, but let's just say it's very articulate. Right. It's very precise. It uses a lot of textures.
But I'm not a perfect player, you know that.
No, but whenever you're looking for equipment, you're looking for the front of the note and the development of the note, and so you can get your sound out.
That's correct, and shape it.
Yes. Now, and I'm talking about Dave. Like I'm Dave, and I'm not. I've just worked with him long enough.
We worked together so long. You know exactly what I.
And so the disco era set you up. I remember you telling this story.
That's correct.
And so talk about those days recording in the studio, doing this.
Well, you had to be on top of the time, and you had to be able to make crescendi and decrescendi. For me, like a bass player.
So how do you only single tongue and do it as fast as you do? Everyone wants to know this.
Is that true?
I don't know. I don't know.
That is true. Yes, it's true. All right, wait.
It is now.
I practice very slowly, and I practice very repetitively, like dun dun dun. I mean, like it could unnerve people. When I started doing that, I was 24. I knew I had to make a change from my orchestral. I was strictly an orchestral player, you know, and when I became around 24, I've been thrown into an arena, maybe too quickly, with heavy-duty jazz bands, rock, disco, R&B, but not like lightweight stuff. Somehow I lucked into...
Yeah.
Like right away, man. And so I changed when I was 24. My exercises were I did Broadway shows for about 6 years. I had my own Broadway show while I was going to college, even.
Why?
Why? Money. I had a kid when I was 24.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And also I wanted to break into other fields. Juilliard said, no, not Broadway, no, not jazz. Juilliard didn't even have a jazz record at that time. And when I went there, God, that was 62 to 68. When were you born too?
Yeah. A few years later.
But I realized that the articulation I was using wouldn't work the way I wanted to express myself. I feel that articulation is the key to interpretation. So I need mouthpieces. So I didn't change the mouthpiece first. I started articulation exercises. They were so simplistic. Stagehands at concert halls and stuff, I get there early, would think I was a student learning how to play the trombone. That's how basic if you want to play fast, you have to play slow. And you have to really search out equipment that has the right resistance. Now, I don't care where you get the resistance. Heavy slide, light bell, heavy bell, light slide. But you notice this right away. I can change cups and rims, but usually the backbores stay consistent.
Yes. Yeah.
And the backbore is larger than some, perhaps smaller than some, but it gives me freedom.
Which gives you a shorter throat.
Yes, I like short throats.
Yes,
That's right.
and this is something nobody ever talks about, because people always talk about the cup diameter or cup depth and the throat size, but the throat length.
The throat length is very important to me.
It's crucial, and to get the blossom the way you need, having a shorter throat.
And you get the punch.
And so a lot of times when you're trying a tailor mouthpiece, it's actually freer blowing than the number would say, because it's not, because the backbore's a little more open, which allows for a shorter throat, which allows freer blowing, but compression.
But you have to remember, I practice fundamentals every day.
You've warmed up the same way for how many years?
Since I'm 20, well, I'll be 79 in June, God willing. Since I'm 24, so what is that? 50,
Yeah, a long time.
50,
Yeah,
50,
yeah.
The same exercises.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, man. Guys like old timers like Doc Severinsen, who are 90, who is 90, and guys who go into that length. The key is have a routine.
Yeah, yeah.
The key
Every
is
day.
a routine.
Yeah.
And so I could spend, I mean, if I'm on the road, or doing a recital, I don't do my full routine because I'll leave it all in the practice room. Lately, I've been doing for the last few years unaccompanied recitals. I use the 1.2. No, I use the 1.75 for that.
Mm-hmm. Just a little smaller.
A little smaller, throat's the same.
Yeah.
A little smaller cup, throat's the same. Rim is it rim a little smaller too? I don't know.
Yes, the cup
So
diameter
it
comes in.
down
Yep.
proportionately. So I use that on my recital work. And what was the question? So I practice fundamentals every day. I don't.
For articulating. And so when you start slow, but at what point do you start speeding it up? You never speed it up.
Never speed it up.
So when you play,
I make slight variations just because you have to get used to chop pressure. I mean, I have a whole philosophy. I
slight
have a book.
variations where?
Well, in aperture, embouchure, diaphragm. I didn't learn aperture until maybe 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So let me just when you start playing fast and you want to maintain your purse and corners in. Oh shoot. Okay. So the key to the throat thing. I'm just thinking about this now. I'm improvising.
No, it's cool. Have at it.
All right. So if your mouth is like this, you know, if you're stretching and stuff like that, your tongue has no room. But if you keep your mouth oval or pursed, corners in, then your tongue has more room. For every note above G, the bottom of the bass clef staff, my tongue is behind my teeth, meaty part of the top teeth.
Okay. Yep. Here's your teeth. Here's your gum line. So you're.
I don't do the gum line. I'm down, halfway down, meaty part of the top teeth.
Okay, so top of the teeth, right closer.
No, the meaty part, which is in the middle.
In the middle of the teeth.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
No, I want to be very specific.
All right,
So yeah.
okay. And then when I switch to low notes, switch to anything below, you have to practice this way because you have to get the transition. Any note from F, G flat on down, I go to the top of my lip.
So
The
right
tongue
here.
goes just below the teeth, hitting the top of it. You always have to have something to hit.
Okay.
And you can't go through. Once you start going through, you're articulating with your lips.
Yep.
And you know.
Yeah.
And then you have to bring your tongue back and down.
Okay.
So you have to avoid that. And that's basically what I concentrate on. When I'm playing loudly, I might make that shift from teeth. I don't think in terms of drop the jaw.
Okay.
When a person drops the jaw, to me, that's like a farmer going to the well, pulling up the water. When the tongue drops, which is about 23%, I figured all this out.
Okay.
Your jaw drops just enough to do the gig.
Gotcha.
So to me, it's like using a pulley on the well rather than digging down. That's a weird visualization I have, man. So when I get louder, I move it. Usually that change will be about go up to a D, about a fifth higher. And that's what I do for articulation. I mean, my legato is in the same place as my marcato or tenuto. I slur when I have to slur. I don't practice slurring, though. I practice just articulation and diaphragm proportion. Because if you overblowing to me, this is subjective, Chris, everything we're talking about. Overblowing to me is when the mouth is doing more action than the diaphragm. For me, when the diaphragm is kind of compatible with the relaxation of the mouth, you can't overblow.
Well, I was gonna, as we were sitting here and when we're talking, I was gonna ask you. I mean, I'm looking at your lips, and
Gorgeous,
amazing. But no, I mean, in all seriousness, you don't have as the pictures of Miles with the lips just really the impression. Or when I'm looking at your lips, I can see obviously where the mouthpiece sits.
I've been practicing hard today so far before you showed
But
I'm true.
you understand what I'm saying.
Right.
How do you not have the cut lines like most people?
Because I had a stretch before I was 24. And I learned this after school. You only go to school to learn how to set yourself up to learn. You know that, right? So when I got out of school, that's when I really learned the practical needs of my future, technically. I really always concentrate the horn doesn't come pushed to my face. Because when your horn comes pushed to your face, your mouth has to smalls up and your tongue has no room. Just not practical.
So the first year I'm working with Dave, it's 1998, and I'm working with you, and you came in, and the reason I'm saying this is you started playing, and if you've ever worked with me, I'll walk behind the player, walk around. I'm always checking the acoustics of the room, far, close, mid, whatever. And as I got close to you, occasionally I would hear a little air coming right here,
sure.
and the amount of pressure you use is not intense. But I think
I don't understand what you're saying.
You don't use a lot of pressure.
I don't use pressure. No. I mean, you see marks, but I don't. But I don't use pressure. You know, it's funny, man. I work a lot with Daniel Schneider, and I created a whole kind of for everybody to use repertoire. I brought you. You probably don't even remember this. One night, I was at the factory with you, and I put on this insane stuff we were playing. Back in the day, it was insane stuff.
Yeah.
You said, wow, that doesn't even sound like a bass trombone. I don't know if you remember any of that, man. It's like,
Yeah.
It was like just so lickety-split at that time. It was like an advance and stuff. It's just articulation, man, and diaphragm. That's all I think about, articulation.
But I think not getting bound up muscle-wise.
I don't get bound up muscle-wise. The key, though, I practice some. I have 4 basic exercises I practice. One of them is an exercise where you stretch your lips. So the aperture came into full swing. Because now I think of embouchure as a shelf the aperture sits on.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
All of this just helps. This is just sitting on this. So when you go like that, more meat comes out.
And you're going to get a thicker sound because you're getting more vibration.
Less space that you have to move.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right. So for me, that was like, I always wanted to have an octave key. I was always envious of clarinets or oboes or saxophones and stuff. Aperture for me was the octave.
Well, I've noticed you play a lot more vertically.
Yes, I do. I improvise vertically.
Horizontal. So
Right.
I'm a lot of times I'm out in the audience or I'm listening to your recordings, and it may be a second to you, but it's a ninth. So
yes, that's right. That's a great way to put it, man. Yes, I don't think in terms of the wide interval. It's just the sound I hear in my ear,
right,
and it goes there.
Yeah. And that's an interesting concept, and I've noticed that more from guitar players than trombone players. Trombone players, we generally think in a linear, horizontal fashion rather than.
I don't know why that happened. I became so secure with the way I articulate that it just worked in every area, man. It worked in big bands, it worked in rock groups, it worked in disco.
So with this discipline, when we've created these mouthpieces,
we're talking hours.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
we're talking. I put hours out, and I still do. Not hours and hours, but I used to put, literally, man, when I was in my early 20s, 5 hours of that. Shit, I would spend all day on one note if I had to.
So when it comes to your Taylor mouthpieces,
right.
I would say they're very akin to a Ferrari.
That's what you always said. You want to play a Ferrari.
Yeah, and what
But the larger ones are fit for everything. I mean, I don't play the largest ones we make.
But what I mean is you can manipulate the timbre
Totally.
At will. And most orchestral players really want more stability because they just want the bricks to be there. But what your mouthpieces allow people to do is to color and to shift and move. But if you think it, these mouthpieces will do it.
Correct, but I don't want you to think that, you know, when I'm playing an ensemble stuff or I'm soloing over orchestras, I'm having various sections, I need the stability. And when I need the stability, it's there. But
you've practiced these things so that
I practice these things.
Yeah, so I mean, when you don't just not do long tones. I mean, you have to practice having stable tone, and you have to work on. I mean, I'm assuming.
Well, it's interesting. Articulation really is only a long tone cut up. So like I'll play one exercise, bop, 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 but I hear it as a long tone sliced. Then
So your air is still
moving. So it's a long tone sliced, and then I have an exercise da 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 da. I mean, I do it ad nauseum. So that's long tones. Although it's interesting, man. I used to play that in the Schlossberg book, trumpet book, and I would transpose. This is going back before they made transcriptions. This is in the 60s, late 60s, 1960s. I would only play the long tones at the back of the Schlossberg book. There's about 9 or 10 different things. So I did. I practiced long tones, man, a lot. Yeah, so I learned diaphragm positions, man. I don't use syllables. I don't use ta, ta, to, to, ti,
TT. Yeah.
I don't do it. I practice scales so much over the course of I stopped playing syllables about 25, 30, 35 years ago. I know where the note's supposed to be. I hear the note because I know more precisely because I practice precise. I kind of have my notes memorized with my mouth, and generally memorized with my diaphragm because the diaphragm has more mass and has more. Am I getting too technical?
No. I think it's great. I mean, I want people to know
that we think things through.
Yeah. Yeah, and everybody, you have to find your own way through these things. But this, I think if two people walk up in the next 5 years and go, hey man, I love that video with Dave Taylor, it really showed that's going to be worth doing this today. Okay. So, I mean, you have to look, and everyone, it's how you relate and you hear it in a different way. So I think this is amazing.
Can I get crazy?
Yeah.
I was practicing these articulation things, and I would always end with that da 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 da, which is really a long tone. Just the tongue is a legato, and then I move them. You start hearing the sound like a samurai. You start hearing the sound all around. You know what happens when they say a samurai goes over his head, and
you hear the resonance.
He could back up and hit you. By the 4th or 5th hour, it was like your head was, you know, singers have head tones.
Yeah.
It was like everything was vibrating. And I got used to that. And so when I play too loud, which I like to do, I don't lose gigs because I'm not aiming for a wall. I'm just pushing air through the room. If I was aiming for the wall, I'd probably lose half the gig. You know what I'm saying, man? That's blasting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just moving air. At least I think I am, man. You know, I think these things through. Man.
Well, I remember is it Al Hirt tribute? Remember that?
That was, we had a bunch of.
Yeah. How many bass trombone players on stage?
Well, there must have been 6, 8, 10.
No, it was like 12 to 16 bass trombone. Right. It was 3 rows it was insane. I think it was 3 rows of trombones.
I remember that concert. I remember you coming up to me and singing when I heard.
Well, it was interesting because there was a sea of red bells, higher copper content bells. You were the only one playing a yellow bell. And when your sound just jumped off stage.
It's interesting because I only started playing yellow bells when I came to you. When I came to Edmonton.
And I may have positioned myself right in front of your bell. You know, I wanted to hear everything, but it was. Right. But there's a thing about learning to get your sound off the stage, and I think you've learned.
Copper feels real good over here, but I do think the yellow.
Yeah, it's more consistent. It's weird to say it's consistently hard through the bell, but there's a feeling whenever I play it that it through all dynamics.
Guys try to turn me off to it.
Yeah.
Guys try to say, "Oh no, Taylor, you're not going to have the colors from when you get there." That's not true.
Yeah. Oh, you have tons of colors in your in timbre
right,
changes.
right,
Yeah. Can a player affect the timbre more greatly with the mouthpiece, or if they want a timbre shift, should they be looking at the bell?
No, it comes from the mouth. Look at the way I play, man. Once the air leaves the mouthpiece, game over.
So they want a heavy, thick mouthpiece with a lot of weight and.
I can't play that. That's not my. Well, I think
That was a loaded question because I knew you'd say that.
I can't play because you can't shape sound. You can't. Your lips get so locked in.
Now, that being said, I'm terribly out of shape right now, so I'm playing a heavier mouthpiece because it locks me in right
That's
now.
correct.
And as I get in better shape, I will go back to a medium or a lighter blank because right now I need to sound good when people are around, and so I have to do that right now.
I understand. There's a. All right, because I play the exercises I play, and I describe it to cats this way. It's like a suspension bridge. They're made to be strong, but the roadway is made to be able to give a little bit.
Yeah.
I can create my timbres on these mouthpieces because my mouth can go like this, but my tongue always knows where to go. It's like a suspension bridge thing.
Yeah.
In reverse. The roadway is solid, but the bridge itself moves. And because I have the room in the throat, the short throat, and the backbore, I can change the shape of my cavity, and I could use diaphragm in different positions. I can forget my technique.
Yeah, and that's always the
what you
end
want.
game.
You want to forget your technique. You practice, like I was telling you, I practice my scales all the time, but when I go out to the gig, and I practice concerti and stuff like that, thinking technique, I practice over and over again, not because I can't play the phrase. My technique is pretty good, so I can kind of play, except for, unusual thing. I practice over and over again so I can play the phrase differently 100 times. And I can improvise my way out or adjust to a string player or just feel free to do whatever the hell I want every time. And the mouthpiece is a great aid to that, man. It's just fun, man.
Yeah.
It's about fun.
I'd like to ask you, over the 60 plus years you've playing?
No, I'm playing a trombone since I'm 17. 60, I would say 60 years. Yeah.
So over that time and being professional for probably, 50 plus.
I would say 50 plus.
Yeah. So over this time period, what is the biggest advice you could give a young professional player about the scene and what not to do?
What not to do. Okay, so first of all, when they say 80% is showing up, that's on time. That's the first thing. Show up on time. That really is 80%.
And on time means a little early.
Yes.
I mean.
Yeah, I have to say, man, I have a reputation of you don't have to worry about Taylor showing up on time. He's there 20 minutes in front, half hour in front, either warming up or just warming up.
Yeah.
Always warm up. I could literally, in the 60 years, I could literally count on my hands how many times I would leave this house without being warmed up.
So you warm up at home, and then
I warm up at home. Sometimes
allow plenty of time.
If I warm up at the gig, I bring a practice mute.
So you've
I
seen.
don't want to warm up too loud. Like, I'd rather warm up in a dead room than a concert hall, because then you try to fill the concert hall while you're warming up.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'll bring a practice mute. I have a reputation of practicing all the time. I mean, it's not a bad reputation to have.
No, absolutely not.
Because that way employers can hire you down the road. Between all my concerto work and solo work now, I'm in the process this month, in a month and a half, of doing 3 big band recording projects. One of them is this Thad Jones thing I was telling you about. This guy named John LaBarbera, next March 21st, with the big band project. A great section: Ryan Keberly, Mike Davis, Sarah Giacomino, myself. I finished a project with Blue Lou Marini with a big band thing. So I just have to be ready technically for anything that's
Even when you take vacations, I know you travel with a lead pipe and a mouthpiece
and those ping pong ball, that thing.
yeah, breath builders or whatever they're called. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's a breath builder.
Yeah.
Even then though, it takes time to come back to your prime. Like I'll be ready within 4 days or 3 days to really do just about any gig except solo gig. Solo gig takes a little more time.
Yeah, so you just got finished playing with in the Kennedy Center, is that correct?
Well, it was April.
April?
Last April.
You know,
Right.
I if you watch my videos, I always focus on performing for the public. And my main logic is you'll get paid more. When you're playing for trombone players or studios, the bread is less, generally speaking.
Well, I played for people in them. Yeah.
Right, and we don't have to talk about numbers, but when you're trying to choose jobs to do, how do you go about managing your gig life and your schedule, and how have you looked at jobs over your career?
I would say up until I was 40, in my 40s, every job was a way to develop my craft. I would turn down pricey gigs to do gigs that cost me money to do. You know, I didn't worry about. I worried about the money at the beginning, of course, and I was doing all this work in the theater stuff for the first 6 years. But then I knew that was a dead end for me.
Why is that?
It's an honorable job. It's a wonderful job. Just too repetitious. And my wife saw how I couldn't handle that. So I took a big hit.
And you, I think you really have to be aware. Like when you're really young, you see the lights, you see the stage, and getting there is part of the process. But then getting out to do, it can be your home base, and then you can launch off that to create your own art as opposed to somebody else's art.
Luckily, even when I started playing solo stuff, this is I don't know how many years ago, the cats thought I was crazy playing bass trombone solos. But then when the studio scene went away, incidentally, when you say about the business now is very different than it was 30 years ago. You know, there's very little recording work for people. I mean, there's some people doing some, even in California and Nashville. I think that's gone down, but it didn't matter to me because I was already moving up. I don't let any grass grow, man.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Maybe it's a way to avoid our ultimate demise. Just keep your mind on other stuff. I don't know what the reason is. You don't want to go through your life bored.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
That's
absolutely.
the basic thing.
Yeah.
You don't want to be bored, man. And I'm not bored for 1 second. Man.
I've noticed this about great players. They'll always ask me questions like, and you've done this many times. You're like, so what are you investing in now? And this is something that musicians don't really talk about. Yeah. But starting at a young age, how did you learn to invest? And who did you study?
Who did I study?
Yeah.
For that, you mean?
Yeah.
I
studied him. And others, but
but my wife was a New York City school teacher. And they had a tax-deferred annuity plan that would pay either max aggressive stocks or guaranteed 7.5%. We did guaranteed through them. I didn't have any private kind of stuff. But then I worked for this fantastic contractor named Emil Charlap. He did all the movie dates in New York. He was really like the creme de la, I mean, it was really something. And he was always looking at the stock market stuff. And I said to him, Emil, he was an old timer. I mean, he must have been 30 years older than me or something, 25. He would say, I'm never going to tell you what stock to get.
Yeah.
Just get something and hold on to it. That was his advice to me. Get something that's good and hold on to it. So, you know, but I don't think I had financial security till I was well up in my 50s.
But you'd been looking after that already for
I had been
a while.
Aware of the fact that life is fast.
It is unbelievably fast. And so this advice is to younger musicians: get in early, as quick as you can, into investing, and find somebody with knowledge greater. On
another podcast, I said something. I said, make money and fly under the radar.
Yeah.
That was for, you know what I mean? It's like, and you don't have to tell anybody what you're doing.
Right. And that's, whenever I learned from many, I mean, of the musicians, when I first got in at Edwards, I was 24, 25, and there was this, I was seeing this, this theme.
Tell me the truth now. All right, we're going back 26 years.
Mm-hmm.
When you met me that first time, you were wearing full-fledged camouflage.
No, that wasn't the first time. That was probably the third or fourth time. And it wasn't camouflage. It was my uncle's army jacket. Yeah.
Yeah, you had the trousers too, I think, man.
My dad was in the Air Force, and he had military green.
I said, what?
Yeah, and so, this is obviously pre-1991. I went to the wrong airport.
I remember that.
So I showed up early to the wrong airport, and his plane was getting ready to pull away, and it was at O'Hare in Chicago. And I went downstairs because it was, back then you could go right to the gate still, and I'm standing in my dad's, they're hand-me-down clothes, but camo, and then my uncle's army jacket was just, and
what's this kid doing, man?
They pulled the plane, they opened the door and let you off the plane. They let you off the plane, and your bags were still underneath. And so,
you mean they just let me off the plane?
You got off the plane, and you walked in, and then...
Well, you know, that's pre-9/11,
yes,
so things were different.
And I had this 1996, man, it was a cool car, SS Impala, big black car. Yeah. And his instrument and luggage went to Milwaukee. So we went and jumped in the car.
Black.
Yes, and I hauled all, and we were going...
But here's something else that you did, which made me respect you right away. You were green.
Yes.
24.
Yep.
And we had a rough day at the factory.
Mm-hmm.
And you were driving me back to the airport, and you just laid it out. Look, Dave, I know you're older than me, and I know you have your ideas, and I know how old I am, but if we're going to work together, we have to compromise on this stuff. I'll never forget that.
Did I say that?
You didn't say compromise. You may be a little more strong, but that's what you meant.
Yeah.
But you were strong, man, right from the get. And I said, oh, sure.
Well, and it took me a while to figure things out too. And
but you upgraded my stuff within the second year, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
yeah.
You know, like,
and you know, so we've had a great relationship over these 26 years.
I would say so, man.
And I've enjoyed every minute of it. Not every second of it, but every minute, I would say.
No. I mean, we are ourselves.
Yeah, and seeing your career evolve, watching you go from playing, even at the ITF in, I think it was Helsinki.
I was in Helsinki
when you played there, and then now you're playing with the Kennedy Center.
Well, I play a lot of concerti. I played in major concert halls around the world.
He's being shy. He's being shy.
I'm not being shy. This one is important to me.
The Washington Post.
This is important to me. It's not about even what they said. It's that I came in as the best top 10. This is the Washington. Subjective, man.
Best of 22, classical music.
Right.
There's a bass trombone player.
Right, with London Symphony,
the
Metropolitan Opera, Michael Tilson Thomas. But here's the thing, Chris. I hate to say it, man, but it's equipment, too. It's not just, you have to have... I don't want to be a total salesman. I know I'm being a salesman, but I don't want to be a total salesman. But the truth is, man, you have to have equipment that does what it's supposed to do.
And it's taken you a while to figure it out. And that's the other thing.
I'm still growing now.
Musicians that I've worked with over the years are always working on the really small 1%, 2%, 1%, 2%, 1%, 2%.
That's right.
And over
1 to 7 is easy.
Yeah.
Right.
But getting it, because you can just say, oh, this is better. Well, it's better in this way, but is it better in every way? So it's working on qualifying things in that 1%.
It keeps you current. I mean, like I said, with all these band projects now, I usually work, the nearest guy in age to me is usually 25 years younger than me. Once in a while, there'll be a guy 5, 10 years younger than me. Everybody knows I'm grandpa, but I'm carrying my weight. So far, I'm carrying my weight, and that's all they care about, people.
I know you teach.
Yeah. The studio scene, when it was really flourishing, you really had to be fast, because it wasn't about only your style. your sound. It was about everybody was booking so many gigs that you had to get the guys out on time so they can get to the next gig.
Oh, yeah.
There's a correlation to orchestra stuff too.
And it was also tape. So if
Yes,
you're
it was
recording on
tape.
tape, you
That's
have to
right.
be fast and good because you can't have 10 takes on
No,
tape.
and usually dates are booked with possible overtime, possible 20 minutes, possible hour. But if a guy got stuck with a possible 20 minutes, he'd lose too much money on the other side of the session. So you had to be fast, man. Look at orchestra auditions with sight reading. That's a political thing too, man.
Yeah.
If you can sight read well, that means less rehearsal time.
Right.
So there's a correlation to all of this stuff, man. There's really no difference, man. I hate to say it. Style is, I don't hate to say it, I flourished on it. If you think that I'm proud of the relationship of that article you held up just now, being compared to symphony orchestras and conductors and stuff, I also have, I don't believe I like the comparisons. I don't believe the reviews. I like the comparisons. I got jazz compared one of my records to some heavy cats. You need equipment.
Yeah.
That can be Class A.
That works all the time.
Go.
Yeah.
I am being a salesman, but I believe in the product. You know me,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
I wouldn't.
So, what do you have in the next couple of years coming up? Where?
Well, I mean, I'm playing at Brevard Festival. I'm doing another recording now. I'm doing recordings of my own. I can't even remember what I'm doing. I go to Austria. I'm going around the world, man. I mean, I don't know. Man.
Where can people find your music?
Well, I have a website, davetaylor.net. All the music up there to listen to a few times is free. I have about 10 or 15 solo albums. I'm working on some now. I've written music. Some guys from Indiana University are playing my piece, Houdini's Lament. The 14
Oh, yeah,
minute.
I know this, yeah.
14, it's on my website. So they guys are playing on their graduation recitals down there. A guy from Uruguay just ordered a thing. A tuba player just... I'm always hitting it, man. It's like...
Well, and I've loved watching your career the last 26 years when I was a part of it.
Me too, man.
And it's really fascinating for me. I've learned so much. And people, when they visit me, they're like, they can't believe what I'm doing, like business-wise
You're
or.
with some heavy shooters.
And whenever I work with you, I have to meet your expectations, which are not low expectations; they're very high.
Well, I mean, you sweat for that mouthpiece, man.
Yes. And so whenever I'm working with the world's best musicians, I have to hold myself accountable at that same level in every area of my life.
Well,
and
you're doing it.
well, I'm trying. So, but I appreciate you mentoring me and helping me grow.
Give me a break, man. I mean, I appreciate you giving me the best equipment I could play, man. It's like, you know, I have one setup. I have three setups. I have one setup that. Man,
well, no. You warm up in a specific way of size. Can you
what does that mean?
Mouthpiece size?
Oh, I warm
Can you-
up. I warm up.
can you
on
talk about that?
small, and then I go big.
Yeah, tell people.
Oh, I warm up on a well, what do we have? 125, 150.
1.7. The 1.75 is small. Yeah.
175, 1.5, 1.25, 1.
Yeah.
Minus
Yeah.
0.
Oh, yeah. We don't get the negatives, but
No, I can't play those. I really can't. They're just too big. I go up to a 1, but I start on a 175.
why?
No stress. I mean, bass trombone players warm up from high notes sometimes. I mean, I see this all the time with students. And,
So you start small, and then as the day progresses, you'll get a little.
No, I start small for the first 20 minutes.
Okay.
Oh, well, all right. You really want to get into it?
No, I'm just yeah.
My first exercise every day is bum, 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 chromatic, diatonic. I don't get to my first higher note until I start on low F. I go up to a F above the staff. Eventually, after the first 10 minutes, then I go from E down to the low B. That doesn't happen for about 15 minutes. That exercise doesn't require rapid tongue. Or, no, I'm lying. That exercise can, can get fast. But my second exercise is The smaller mouthpiece doesn't allow me the freedom. So after my first 20 minutes, I take 20 minutes off. And then I switch to the 1.5 or the 1, depending on my setup. Actually, the 1.75 works on both my setup. I don't know why that is. Why is that? Yeah, that's just idiosyncrasy, right? Yeah. All right. So, but after the first 20 minutes, I'll get off the 1.75 and use whatever bigger mouthpieces I'm using for the rest of the day. And if I use the small mouthpiece, take 20 minutes off after 20 minutes, I can play all day nonstop. No, not nonstop, but you know what I mean. And I don't know why that is. Some guys like big go small. I don't know, you know.
I've always come from athletic endeavors, cycling or running or soccer when I was young. That 20-minute break he takes allows the lactate acid to dispel, get back into the body, and then it's back.
Whoa, what's lactic acid?
It's what muscles fatigues them.
Oh.
And so you're letting that to go away, and then when you come back, you're even more fresh.
Right. Yeah.
Then you got all the red blood cells kicking, everything's oxygenated, and then
I'm good all day. But like I said, like for concerti, like I'll be playing some concerti. I'm doing trio records, so for the brass trio record, I'll use this mouthpiece. Oh, and now I have a trio with the trumpet player Sergei Nakaryakov.
Of course, yeah.
So he's very demanding, you know that. So we're going to be starting up that in June, and then I'll be traveling to him back and forth. That's a heavy trip. This kid Sergei Nakaryakov.
So how?
And then I'll play concerti. When I play concerti, I use my bigger pieces. When I play small group solo, I use my smaller pieces.
So how important has networking been in your career?
Well, here's the thing, man. When I told you I couldn't get into any ensembles at Juilliard, and I went right to the street, I was networking when I wasn't even aware I was networking.
I was the same.
Yeah.
Whenever the reason I got my job was networking.
Yeah.
And
well, you jumped.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
And it was like all of a sudden the door was open. I was like, I didn't.
That was Don.
It was Don. It was John Kitzman and Joe Lessie. Those three. I'd been taking lessons with them, which is networking technically.
Look, when guys come to town and want to play in Broadway shows, take a couple lessons with the Broadway show player.
Right, and so there's the networking and the ability to not just. I text all day long, but the ability to not just text a person, but to meet them face to face, take a lesson, hear.
But you better sound good.
Well,
that's all I can say. You better sound good. I mean.
First
impressions are big.
You have to have a good product. When I started making mouthpieces, I knew because of my association with Edwards, I didn't have an opportunity to fail.
No, you were already high profile.
So I spent 9 months working on my first piece before I ever let anybody test them besides me. And it was finally at that point when I was ready, I had like 2 bass, 2 tenor, 2 jazz, small bore mouthpieces. And I was like, I made sure they were good. And I tested in the background. And when I knew they were finally good, then I launched the brand.
I use the mouthpieces I need.
Yeah.
That's what I do. And
well, I think the rim has a very distinct shape to it. It has clarity to it that if you can
You once mentioned you thought it was on the thin side.
Well, it's not the thinness. It's the high alpha angle, the way the shape of the rim when it comes in. And some people perceive it
to the bite?
right here on the inner, the top right there.
Wow.
In that alpha angle right there.
That gives me the flexibility, man.
Correct. But when a traditional player presses on, as they say in the UK, they're like, when things get rough, press on. Well, when you see a guy who's got a big left bicep and not a right, it's because he's relaxed on his side arm and not his...
I was going to buy a Fitbit and wear it on my right arm, but you wear a Fitbit.
Oh, yeah.
You're walking 20 miles a day, man.
So there's these things that you have to consider when you're buying a mouthpiece. You have to know who it was designed with and for, and their approach. And then if you approach it in the same way, you will have success. If you approach it in an absolutely opposite way, you probably won't find success, right? I mean...
Well, I don't understand what you just said. Make it simple.
Okay, I know you.
Right.
When I play your mouthpieces, I approach it with
You
your.
hear me.
Yeah.
You feel me.
But
you understand where it's coming from.
I approach it the way you approach a mouthpiece.
How do I approach a mouthpiece, man? I like to back off, less pressure.
Less back off, less pressure. Those are the two key things. And honestly, I can play any mouthpiece. You want to know why? Those two things.
Right. You can figure it out.
Rims don't matter to me. And
well, they did to me, but over the last 5 years, no.
yeah,
Rims don't matter.
if you focus on those two things, I can play any mouthpiece. Then it's a matter of the compression rate, then the airflow and the resonance there within.
Compression rate is what?
The compression rate comes from the depth of the cup. If you shallow
What do you mean compression? I don't get what you mean.
Well, I look at, in my head, I always see the cup depth as, it's just that, it can be a little funnel shape or whatever, it can be, a little straighter, or it can be, all those things. But it's not about that. If I hear, the compression rate is too deep.
Oh, bro.
Yeah, and so I hear it as, I heard a player recently, and as soon as they played, they're just warming up, I'm like, I knew the compression rate was...
So if I like front on these mouthpieces, immediate...
well, you have to find the right depth, but then the number at the throat has to be correct to get the happening and claim the clarity.
I was sitting next to a guy on a recording session the other day. It was rehearsed, so we had been playing. And he said, I can't believe that there's no time between your articulation and it comes out of the horn.
Because the compression rate is just, it's just there.
For me.
Right. It's just right there. And so in the inverse, if it's really shallow but they have a blown out throat, you can also get the same but then the width of sound is wider and the core of sound is more of a donut.
I hear orchestral players who make a living at it. Because you have to remember, I played in Lincoln Center Chamber Music Society for about 20 years, and I played in orchestras. I subbed Philharmonic a lot for my teacher when he was sick. I was a member of the Sopran's Orchestra. I played mostly Mozart Festival 20-some odd years.
Yeah.
But when I hear orchestral players talking now, they talk, guys your age, around your age group, they talk about preserving the...
I said old.
So they talk about preserving the art of the orchestra playing to keep everything, but that's not what orchestral playing was 50 years ago.
Oh no, they were playing...
Or 75 years ago, or next generation.
Yeah.
So what's there to preserve except beauty, ensemble, blend? When we talk about holding a note consistent, long, and this and that can be overdone, I think. When I hear oftentimes people say, well, we're preserving the tradition by keeping this, or, that's suspect to me. I'm not into artifactual, iconic. Maybe that's why I play differently and I fail so much, because I'm not into the artifactual. If I'm into an artifact, it's I want to communicate with people. When I play, oftentimes in front of, the hardest audience for me to play in front of is trombone students. That's hard. That scares the heck out of me.
Yeah.
I can play in front of 3,000 people, 20,000 people. I'm cool. But to play in front of trombone students, because I know they're listening to stuff that I am concerned with, but almost not concerned with.
Yeah, playing for peer groups is a tough. That's a tough situation.
I try to tell kids you can have the street in school if you can get away with dissolve peer pressure.
Yeah,
that's a very hard thing to do, man. Look, one of the best compliments I got from a guy was Bill Watchers. He says he likes my playing. I'm not gonna say more than that. He likes my playing because I can play what I don't hear.
Yeah.
I don't have to understand. What do I mean? What's your interpretation of what I just said?
Well, that's instantaneous composition.
Right. Even when you're playing written through composed music.
Yeah. I don't think of it as jazz. I don't think of it as classical. It's just
immediacy and spontaneous imagination, man. You listen to guys like Miles Davis talk, or composers. I took with Luciano Berio, sequencing. When I was at Juilliard, he was there for a year, and I took with him. The most important thing is imagination. the most important thing is imagination. Everything else,
Yeah.
imagination.
Yeah. So
I play equipment that lets me be imaginative, not holding me back with any, you know.
I'm one that does deep dives into technology, into anything I'm doing. That's what makes me successful in instruments or even turntables or anything that I'm.
Which I can't imagine. But
Yeah, I do these deep dives and I can't stop until I know everything about it. Now, you compose sometimes on a keyboard.
I don't compose on a trombone.
That keyboard is this big.
Right. It's hard to carry a keyboard on the road.
Yeah, but how many octaves is it?
2, 3. I don't
I
know.
don't even think it's 3. I think it's 2 octaves.
It's a Casio or something.
Yeah, and it's like
Mini
something.
keys.
Yeah.
It's a kiddie to it.
Yeah, but you can create on anything. You don't have to have the best of something. You don't have to have an 88 key with a studio built into it.
Weighted keys.
Yeah, you can create on anything. And I've watched you create incredible music with basic tools. And I'm not being insulting. I think it's fantastic.
I'm not smart enough for a big piano and stuff.
And so when you're really wanting to create, you don't need a Steinway grand piano.
No, but I do when I'm performing.
That's different.
Yeah, I do when I'm performing. When I'm performing, and you know, it's interesting, man. The bell, one of the first 1317 brass bell that I'm playing on. I don't remember this, man. You guys used to give me the full run of the factory. Every tube pipe is like hand off the wall. It used to be on the wall, man.
Oh, I'd go for lunch or dinner, and I would just give you a box of something to play, and I'd come back, and you'd be like, "Chris, I got these 3. You got to hear."
There were 3 1317 bells ready to ship, either to the east or to Russia, someplace, man. And I played one of them, and I insisted to walk out. And it's the best bell I think I've ever had, man. What is it? Coincidence or what?
Sometimes, well, I mean, what is love but your location? Yeah. I mean, if you were there the next week, you may have fallen in love with a different bell.
There was one bell I took home. I didn't want to take it home. You said, "Take this bell home," and it took me a couple of weeks, but that became. That and that 1317.
Well, there was a moment with Carl Fontana. He had 2 bells, and I was like, because one was really, really. Right. I mean, on the other side, and he was like, I don't know. I said, we're gonna ship you this.
Take it home.
Well,
and I did.
And you have to find people that you can trust in your career.
I think that's the most important thing in the relationship. We go beyond trying not to be dishonest with each other.
Yeah.
You have to trust each other, man.
Well,
sometimes you burn bridges that way.
Yeah, yeah.
I burned a lot of bridges, man.
Everyone does in life.
Yeah, right.
I mean, and that's part of going. And you've been pretty adamant in your career contractually with your gigs.
What do you
mean? When you're booking a gig, you make sure everything's nice and tidy.
Oh yeah. Well, I wouldn't say 100%, but when it comes to like orchestra, when I'm playing on top of an orchestra,
or
tell you one story.
Or going to Austria, or going to
That's a one story.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, so there was an Italian orchestra playing in Austria. I'm not gonna mention names or anything like that. They were playing Ein Heldenleben. Now Ein Heldenleben is a big orchestra.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, like 100. I don't know how many. I don't know, man. And they hired me because my friend Franz Hackel, who you've met here, wrote me a concerto based on Ein Heldenleben. He called it U-Held, held, Hero's Journey. I start in the back of the audience, improvise based, because they're already playing a reconstituted version of Ein Heldenleben, but same harmonics. So I'm improvising up to the stage, and then I play this thing with them, you know. But my contract said you get paid in advance. And at the last minute, oh well, we don't have the dough, you know. And the Vienna Philharmonic trombone section was part of backing me up. It was like trombone quartet with me on. They're just part of the Hero's Journey. I said, I'm not playing. And we were bluffing, I guess, up until they started helping it. They were already starting Helden, man. I'm not playing. Somehow they came up with the dough, but not in euros, sterling. At that time.
Yeah.
Right. So I said, well, okay. I said, but you're going to have to pay me the conversion rate.
Well, and
then it was all done before half or 2/3 of Hilton Labor was finished. Then I went on stage and I played my concerto.
Well, and you have to be smart about this thing. This gets back to investing or the business side of things, because I was just listening to an interview with a studio musician, and they were talking about getting paid. They would do the date, and the paycheck would always come 10 to 14 days later.
That's a union law.
And so back in the day, you had to keep track of it too, because if the envelope didn't come, you had to just be courteous and call, and and it would get cut. But if you didn't, you could accidentally possibly not get paid.
That's correct.
And so when it comes to these things in life, and I've made so many bad decisions financially, and people say, well, how did you do this? I'm like, well, I learned by messing up. And same thing, if you learn along the way, and you have to keep track of the small details, because.
But again, there's exceptions to every rule. I was doing an enormous amount of studio work.
Yeah.
Between 10 and 20 recordings a week. That started because I was a member of Thad Jones' Mel Lewis band while I was playing with Willis and Philharmonic. So people said, oh, wow, he could do.
Yeah.
I was doing so many studio dates that I didn't want to keep track of it all. And I figured out after the first couple of years, it's only a very small percentage. So I would rather not keep track of it and take the chance on losing.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I just built that into the.
Well, and this is pre-cell phones. This is and
man, when I first started doing subs for guys, they weren't even beepers.
Yeah.
They would call my mother. I was a student. They called my mother, and I called my mother a couple of times a day.
Yeah.
Things have changed.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
One of the reasons I realized it was not where I wanted to be in the studio scene was when cell phones came out. They just sprayed everybody, and whoever answered first got the gig.
Yeah.
So it was no longer as personal a thing.
Which is how things have,
Oh, man, now, man.
It's a Wild West.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Social media, man, is insane. People don't even do hard magazine ads anymore.
No. Well, Dave, I really appreciate you being here with me. I'd like to let everyone know that if you want to get a Griego Taylor mouthpiece, you can go to griegomouthpieces.com, or you can go for Dave's music and go to davetaylor.net. We're going to put all the links down in the bottom, in the descriptions. I'd like to thank all my Patreons, which are our customers. You, by buying our mouthpieces, allow me to travel around and do these things, like this interview here. And so thank you for choosing Griego products. We, myself and everyone that's involved, we really appreciate you.
You know how much I appreciate you, so I don't have to keep repeating it. But like Kristen, I appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Dave.
You know.
Have a good one.